natural meditation, as the word itself suggests, is totally connected to the nature of the human organism that you are. So that which is natural to you is that which you were born with. That which is unnatural and denaturalizes the human species is information and education that's been added and conditioning that's been added to you after you're born. So it's a big jump to understand that thinking is not a natural thing. We are able to feel naturally, sense naturally, all of our sense organs operate naturally. So much of that goes on as a part of our existence as a body, all of it in fact, all happens naturally. It doesn't require any interference of a thinking process or any extra information based on thinking or based on knowledge for it to operate in its optimal and perfect way. So what happens is at a certain point in our life, all of us early in our life, we're taught to think. And this is because we don't know how to think when we're born. And this being taught to think is useful, of course. We use thinking for all sorts of things, of course. We need thinking. But the thinking itself is not natural to the human being, and it's become a major problem. Because of our overthinking, we use thinking for so many things that it simply isn't useful for. And one of the biggest things that thinking is not useful for is the understanding of our own nature, the understanding of our own existence. So self-understanding is beyond thinking. Thinking is only for describing what we already understand. The thought process and the intellectual process merely repeats what the body already knows in a very different way to the thinking process. So when we're hungry, we feel the hunger, and in that immediate sense of that sensation, in that sensation we know hunger. And then we create the words and the thoughts to express that. But those words and the thoughts are not an understanding of hunger. They are merely repeating what the body already understands. And so it goes for every sensation behind every thought, word and action in our life. What the body knows as a sensation becomes a continuation of its own expression into thoughts, words and actions throughout our life. So it's very important that these sensations that are the origin of every moment in our life and in our self-expression, that these are in good condition. So what happens is when we're affected by anything in life, that is when we're damaged, when we're hurt, when we're traumatized, when we're convinced to believe things that simply aren't true, the opinions we learn about ourselves from other people, which really only become us thinking other people's thoughts, not our own. All of this is a misuse of thought. And this leads to too much thinking, because we become dissatisfied with ourselves based on what we think of ourselves. And what we think of ourselves is culturally and educationally imposed on us. And most people understand this to a certain degree. But how do we free ourselves from this? We need to get back to the natural meditation flow of the body. The mind, what people call the mind or thinking, cannot meditate. Any technique to meditate, any thinking process is merely a repeated process that is a form of self-hypnosis, leading to, through the repetition of that, an experience that is derived from the repetition of a particular technique. So, and this is an outside-in approach to meditation. It's not really meditation at all, even though this is what meditation has been brought to and come to on a public level. But the reason it's been accepted on a public level is because no one knows any better. Even the people who are teaching meditation techniques and meditation based on thinking and noises, sounds and chants and mantras, don't understand that this is not meditation. This is not the natural meditation of the body. This is the imposed additional meditation dreamt up through some thought process, invented by our thinking. And so it is an application of that thinking or ideas or those sounds or those images, which is still thinking, which is still thought, applications of these to bring about a certain condition, a certain feeling. And ultimately the problem with these is we're trying to change the way we naturally are. And every single one of us, in the state we are currently in, we are quite different to one another. And in that sense, we are quite unique. And why are we in the state we're in? Because of the life we've led. So right up until this point, the life that you've led has brought you to this point of the state you're in, physically and psychologically the state you're in. And that actually is absolutely correct to be. That is your natural state. Some aspects of that feel unnatural, like trauma, things you've learnt, conditionings, etc., habits and desires that you have that are causing you trouble, addictions and so on. These are, of course, unnatural to the human being, but they are part of what it is to be naturally you today. And these are the results of what you've been through. So it's completely natural to be affected by whatever you've been through. In that sense, the natural state of this living organism right now for most people when they first start to meditate is tumultuous. There's pains, there's distresses, there's traumas, there's the addiction of thinking. And the addiction of thinking is the primary addiction of the human being. All other addictions stem from that. So to resolve this addiction of thinking is very, very important. It is the first step and therefore the last step of resolving all addictions, because all of your addictions depend on this one addiction. All of your reactions depend on this one addiction. All of your suffering depends on this one addiction. You don't suffer your pain. You don't suffer physical sensations. You feel them. You suffer your reactions to those physical sensations. You suffer your reactions to your disturbance psychologically and the traumas within you. So if this is the state, if any of these are the states you're in, there's nothing wrong with these. And to think you must improve on those is an affront to those, is an attack on yourself as you are. And this is not how you're ever going to change yourself. So to apply a technique to improve yourself is a goal-orientated, desire-based thought process based on a certain idea or a certain belief system. And that is what keeps you thinking. When you want to achieve something or you want to change something, you have a goal to experience something in a particular way within yourself when you're meditating, whilst you are pursuing that goal, you are thinking. So the trick to the thinking dropping away when you're meditating is to have no aim to achieve anything, no goal to be any different to the way you are. And when you look at it, really meditation is to understand yourself, and the only way you can understand yourself is as you are, not as you want to be. As you want to be causes suppression, denial, avoidances, and overriding of yourself as you actually are to be the way you want to be. And what you end up with is not real. It's a manufactured state, a hypnotized state, born of conditioning, born of repetition of ideas, born of the repetition of other people's thoughts and what other people have taught you. And all of that stuff, all of that information is the problem. This is what's taking us away from our thoughtless sensory state. The sensory state of the body is the only state, that is the only thing that can be present. The thought process, the so-called mind, can never be present. It's always in the past, or always about the past. So what is a thought? A thought is a memory. And what is a goal? A goal is something you're looking for in the future. So if you're meditating using a technique to achieve a certain state, you are opposing your past, you're opposing the way you've been up till now, and you're trying to achieve a better state. This is completely disconnected and disassociated from the way you actually are. And how can you ever come to know yourself as you are if you keep avoiding yourself? So why do we avoid ourselves? Because we're frightened of the way it feels, and we also have an aversion to pain, we have aversion to disturbances, and that aversion to pain and disturbances and the way we are is all made up of our thinking. So the thinking is the problem, not the pain, not the disturbances. And yet the thinking being the problem, once we understand that is the problem, that reacting to myself and trying to improve myself is the problem, we understand why we can't stop thinking when we're meditating and why we can't really meditate. A meditation technique is not what I'm helping you understand here. What I'm talking about in natural meditation is what is already happening in you naturally. Without you doing a thing, without you thinking a thing, without you trying to apply a thing, if you just purely sit physically still and just sit physically still, do not concern yourself with what you are thinking. Just let that go on. The reason I say don't concern yourself with what you're thinking is because it's your concern with what you're thinking that keeps you thinking. And the less you worry about or think about or dissect what you're thinking, the less you are thinking. And what is that thinking anyway? It's just imagining. Thought is an image. Thought is an imagining. Thought is memory. Thought is thinking about something that doesn't exist anymore. Or thought is thinking about something that does exist, which disassociates you from what does exist, which is the body of you and how it is for you as a living, feeling, thinking organism. So thinking is not wrong or bad, it's just the way we've learned to use it. We've learned to use it to try and be something different to what we are. And this can't be done. And it shouldn't be done. That's why it can't be done. What can't be done because it's not supposed to be done. It's not the way we naturally are. We're born complete, and the way we are is perfectly fine. Our problem is we are taught that it's not perfectly fine. And we take on those thoughts and those belief systems, and they become the obstacles and the conflict that we have with the way we are on a day-by-day basis, physically and psychologically throughout our life. beneath those is just the way the body is. So coming back to how the body is, how you are as a body in the body, throughout your body, every sensation, the sensations of all your different sense organs, of your seeing, of your hearing, of your smell, of your taste, of the touch of your skin. These are happening naturally. Thought has nothing to do with these. You don't even require thought to recognize the touch. The touch is something that is recognized in its own existence right there. That is the primary point of experiencing touch. The primary point of experiencing sound is the vibration in your ears. The primary point of any sensation is in that particular sense organ. These are just the first steps to understanding your natural meditation. Now, the other thing, of course, is going to be the disturbances that you feel when you first sit down. You may have some physical pain, you may have some physical discomfort, you may think that you are thinking too much, you may feel distress that you don't want to feel. Not wanting to feel it is understandable, but it is the problem. Not wanting to be the way you are is understandable, but it is also the reason you suffer the way you are. And is also the reason you don't understand the significance of the way you are at any point in your life, at every point in your life. So why am I in this particular condition today? My life up to this point has got me to this condition. Or what's just happening right now is generating that condition. And that condition is known to me as a physical sensations throughout my body and the personal feelings that I have. Any sadness, any happiness, and so on. So feeling the way I am right now is knowing myself as I am right now. Knowing myself as I am right now is knowing myself as the body knows itself right now, because the thought process, as I said earlier, doesn't understand anything. It merely reports on what the body already understands. The intellectual process merely repeats what we've been told before. It's not a process of understanding life. Understanding life is only available to the living. And we, by feeling the sensations of ourselves exactly as we are, however they happen to be, we are therefore going deeper into the primary experience of ourselves in this moment and today. Now, additional to this natural meditation is any disturbance that you are in. By feeling that, you activate the healing process or the recovery of that in your own body. And this is part of the natural process of the body, that by living with the sensations and the feelings that are throughout every part of your body all of the time, by feeling any of those rather than disconnecting from those into thinking about them, but just feeling them, not trying to change them, is how you activate or reactivate the healing or the continual processing of that experience. So any trauma that's inside of you, you won't necessarily know the story behind the trauma, but you feel the distress that lives inside of you. Feeling that distress is different to thinking about it. When you're thinking about it, you're wondering, what is it? I don't want it. How do I get rid of it? How do I change it? You can't change it. You can't get rid of it. And these are not actually what you want to do. What you're wanting inside of yourself is you're wanting to be understood, and you're wanting the nurturing that you never had when you were hurt. And that nurturing is not coming from outside of you now. The nurturing How you're going to nurture that is you have to nurture yourself. How do you nurture a disturbance in yourself, a part of yourself that is in disturbance? The only way you can nurture that part of yourself is to be completely involved in the experience of that part of yourself. Be in that part of yourself. Be in that which is disturbed. Feeling however you feel, whether it's disturbed or whether it's pleasant or whether it's painful, it doesn't really matter. All sensations need to be processed, not get stuck. So why do we get stuck? Because we're thinking. And when we're thinking, we're reacting. And when we're reacting, we're repeating the same description of the problem over and over again in various different ways. And then we come up with the descriptions of the solution. And we repeat those in various different ways over and over again. But the solution, we don't realise at the time, is just more of a projection of the problem, born of the problem. When we realise that the way we are is not a problem, it is the solution in itself. The way we are, as long as we understand how to get back into contact with that rather than living in a disconnected, disassociated, thought-based life, we come back to a sensory-based life, the life of the living organism that we were born as, not the life of the thinking that was taught to us, that we have then got so involved in, that we're thinking so much all the time that we don't even realise that that thinking is not even there. It's only imaging. It's only an imagining. It's a creation. It's not something that exists of its own right, of its own volition. It's not something that exists in its own right. It's something we've added to the living. So thoughts are dead. Thoughts are the past. Thoughts are a repetition of what we've learnt on a mental superficial level. And what's driving the thoughts that disturb us, what's driving that thinking, are the sensations deeper in the body, the feelings in the body that we're at odds with. Coming back to those feelings is the natural way to process what is already happening from within yourself. And so this meditation, natural meditation, is about you uniquely. So your meditation is all about you. So part of the process of this meditation is to negate, that is to break down all of the identification you have with all of these repetitive thought processes that actually make up who you think you are, so that you can drop deeper into what you actually are, which is a physical body. A living, breathing, intelligent organism. Highly intelligent organism. Super intelligent. A simple example of that is when you think of somebody you know, someone who's close to you. You can try and tell me about that person, all about that person. Where will you get that information of all about that person? You'll get that from just holding the feeling of them in your body. And in a moment, you can feel the whole knowing of that person who's close to you, whether it's your son, your daughter, your wife, your friend, your father, your mother, whoever it happens to be that's close to you. You know that person intimately, and that knowing cannot be expressed verbally unless you've got 100 years to do that. Whereas that knowing can be known at a felt level in the body in the instant that you bring them to your own attention. So that knowing is there, and that knowing is just a little example of the capacity of the body to understand something, to know something. It is far superior to the intellectual or thought process, far superior. And this body has been around, or these bodies have been around for millions of years. This body knows how to take care of itself. The thought process, what we've worked out, knows very little, is very stupid in comparison. So we need to approach ourselves to give our body a chance to take good care of itself, not interfere with that, with all of our cleverness, with all of our ideas on healing and health and so forth. I'm not completely putting them aside, but what I will say is in time, if you continue to go deeper with this meditation, you will come to understand that what is inside of you as a living organism is all that matters to you, and in that is maybe some problems right now, but it is activating the feelings, getting in touch with the feelings of those problems as they exist for you on a day-by-day basis, that activates the completion, the unfolding of that problem into its own solution. And the body takes care of itself. It's the only healer it is. And that body, this body, is nature. It is a part of nature. And the healing forces, the healing powers of nature are what is in this body. So natural meditation is anything that is currently going on inside of you. To be in and a part of the experience of that without trying to change that at all. And this natural meditation is in that sense a waiting. Almost like a waiting. You simply sit still and be with whatever is occurring for you right now, but limit your thinking about that to the point where you start to ignore your thinking altogether. And you ignore your thinking, not try to stop your thinking, don't worry about that. The trick is you can't stop something that isn't really happening. If you're only imagining a thought, then thought is an imagining. The more you try and stop it, the more you imagine it, the more you keep that imagining going. In time, you'll come to understand that thought is an illusion. Thought is not really there. It is just appearing to be there as anything imagined. So you are not harassed by it. You are harassed by your confusion that it's actually there and harassing you. Going beyond that illusion, understanding that what you think is there is not really there, will come in time. And then you realize that thought is an addition to the function of this body. It is an unnatural addition to the functioning of this body. And that's why our thinking causes so much trouble for the natural functioning of this body and its good health and its intelligence. So whether it's mental health or physical health, these are both one and the same thing. You will resolve your mental health, or what you see as your mental health, when you go deeper into the sensations in your body that are unresolved and feel those until they begin to resolve. And even once they begin to resolve, the way you're thinking is already improving. And the mental health will return as you negate, and part of the process of feeling what's going on inside of you is you come to understand and therefore negate what you think is a problem. You start to understand yourself as you are in a different way to what the thought process can understand. And that is how you just know the fact of how you are. Rather than asking the question of why am I this way, you ask the correct question and you have an answer, which you have an answer for, which is, I am this way. Well, it's not actually a question, is it? You simply recognize, well, I am this way, without asking why I am this way, which is again an attempt to change yourself, to find a solution to why, so I can fix myself. It's still fighting the way you are. It's not about why you are the way you are. You go deeper in your meditation when you can accept or begin to accept, well, this is the way I am, however that happens to be, whether you're happy or sad, whether you're blissful or whether you're distressed. These are just sensations. And the body doesn't mind what sensation's in, what sensation is going on. The body is only interested in the truth of the sensation that is happening right now. That is, what is the state that I'm in now? And in feeling that state, I'm able to reconnect with myself as I am. And that reconnection, rather than being disassociated and disconnected in my thinking, I go deeper into the singleness of feeling the way I am, and the singularity of what is my condition. Not why am I in this condition, but what is my condition. I don't answer that mentally because that's not knowing it. That's just thinking about it. I answer that by feeling it and knowing it. And that feeling is not an emotionalism. I'm not talking about being emotional, although that doesn't matter a great deal. That will also drop away, because emotionalizing is just thinking more and more stories. So your natural meditation is completely unique in the sense that it is only ever about getting back into the experience of yourself as you are. Now, a little problem with saying getting back into is that when I first sit still and I say I'm going to get back into the experience of myself as I actually am, the point I'm making is I'm already in that experience. I just need to sit there long enough for a little while, very, very still, until that experience or that sense of myself as I already am becomes more apparent to me. That, this is the way I am. How come I didn't know that before? Because I was disconnected and disassociated in thinking and trying to achieve something and trying to improve something and trying to make myself different to the way I am. Before you try and make yourself different to the way you are, find out the way you are. Discover for yourself the way you are, and you will find that you don't want to be any different, and that you actually need to be the way you are for that to process. And the final thing that I'll talk about here today is with this natural meditation, we're not concerned about condition we're in, because by being with ourselves in that condition, we are automatically allowing that condition to come to its own end where it needs to resolve itself where it needs to. So any conditioning, any belief system, any ideation that you have about yourself or about life is tending to drop away completely, because you start to discover that the only thing that you can know for and from yourself is within the confinements of your own skin. And that is knowing you. And the interesting thing about this is, as you come to know you as you are, you discover it's just a physical sensation. There is the live sensation of you, which is how you know you exist. And from that live sensation of you, being in touch with that as you are, the obstacles and the difficulties you have with yourself are obviously going to become more known to you as well. And again, just being with those and feeling those and the distress they cause you, but being with that distress enables that to resolve itself. And once you are content with yourself the way you are, you will find you're not interested in trying to achieve or be anything more than what you are. And then with that comes the appreciation of the significance of the uniqueness of you. And that's not something you're going to learn from me or anybody else. That's something you're going to come to appreciate from within your own process of getting back to you. But it starts with the body. You need to be grounded in your body. So any meditation that is mental or mind-based is not meditation at all. They are starting at a state of disassociation, in the delusion that there is a mind, the delusion that there is a thinking that I have to resolve. You don't have to conquer the mind. The mind is just a thought process. It's not something to be conquered. If you try and fight that, you get stuck there. Natural meditation is understanding that the body has its own natural way of meditating, and that thinking is not and cannot ever be part of meditation. You cannot think your way into meditation. You cannot chant your way into meditation. You cannot image your way into meditation. This is not meditation. This is just self-hypnosis. And this will only confuse you, take you away from what you already are and what you already have within you, which will ground you solidly in the reality of all that can be known by you. Not what you imagine, not all the spiritual nonsense, not all this religious nonsense, not all the imaginings to try and get somewhere and get something more out of life, but the reality of, well, what do I have and what am I in life? What do I have and what am I as a living part of nature already? Until you know that, until you have that, you're in no position to decide whether you like or dislike what you are, and you're in no position to decide whether you need to be more than that or not. First, you need to find out for yourself and from yourself what you already are, not who you are. Who you are is just an imagining. Who you are is just some persona that you've made up through your life. What you are is unique, and what you are is known in this living organism. So good luck with your meditation. Just consider it as a purely natural physical function. All you're doing is allowing yourself to be quietly still, physically quiet, for as long as you want to be. So use the guidance in the meditations for a while until you find you don't need them. But they will help you recognize and negate and break down the belief systems that are keeping you stuck and confused. Not adding more belief systems, but removing the belief systems that are already there until there are no more beliefs. Until all that remains for you is a direct knowing. No more complicated than when one finger touches another finger, right there, not here, right there. There is a knowing that is beyond every other part of the body. And only the fingers know what it's like to be in contact. Every cell in the body understands what's going on. Every cell in the body has its own way of thinking. Everything that happens in the body is decentralized. So good luck with your sensing, with not trying to control yourself, but allowing yourself to show yourself, to come to life within yourself by simply not trying to change it, not trying to suppress it, not trying to improve on it, but just coming into contact with yourself in the body as you already are.